Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're opening up a file that feels heavy even before you start.
It really does.
We've got a massive stack of biographies, documentaries, a ton of technical analysis, and we're going to unpack the career of man who is, he's arguably one of the most controversial and successful and complex figures in modern music history.
It's a subject that feels almost impossible to tackle in some ways,
Mm-hmm.
just because everyone, and I mean everyone, has an opinion on him.
Oh, absolutely.
We're talking about Marshall Mathers,
Also known as Eminem.
also known as Slim Shady.
And just saying those names, it brings up such a visceral reaction for people. If you were around in the early 2000s, this guy wasn't just a musician.
No, not at all.
He was a full-blown cultural phenomenon. He was, terrifying suburban parents, barking congressional hearings. He was literally the face of the corruption of the youth.
He's the boogeyman. Absolutely. He was the monster under the bed for an entire generation of parents. But then you look at the resume today, and it's a completely different story.
Totally different.
He's an Academy Award winner. He's a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee. He is, by almost any metric, considered a technical virtuoso who fundamentally changed the way people rhyme words.
Right.
So the real question we have to answer is, how do we get from point A, the public enemy, to point B, the rap god?
That is the mission today. We really want to move beyond just the headlines and the shock value because that's the easy part of the story.
That's the surface level.
Exactly. We want to get into the mechanics of this career. How did a poor white kid from Detroit, weaponize his trauma? How did he build these completely distinct eras of his artistry? And honestly, looking at these sources, how did he survive it all?
It is a fascinating case study in
Right.
in resilience, in branding, and what I would call technical obsession.
Yeah.
And I think to really get it, to understand him, you have to realize we're not just talking about one person. We're talking about a trinity.
The Holy Trinity of Detroit hip-hop? Is that what we're calling?
Something like that.
Yeah.
The sources highlight this constantly.
Mm-hmm.
First, you have Marshall Mathers, the man.
A damaged human being.
Yeah.
The guy dealing with poverty, abandonment, loss. Then you have Eminem,
The artist.
the lyrical tech, the rapper who is just obsessed with the craft, putting words together. And then you have Slim Shady.
The mask.
Exactly. The unhinged, sadistic alter ego that he created to say the unspeakable. And as we go through the timeline today, it becomes so clear that these three personas are just constantly fighting for control of the microphone.
Okay, so let's start where every, superhero, or in this case, maybe supervillain origin story starts.
The beginning.
The beginning. And for Marshall, this was not exactly a happy one.
Far from it. This is section 1, the origin. And if there's one theme here, it's just pure instinct.
Total chaos.
Marshall Bruce Mathers III was born in Missouri, but the real defining fact of his early life, his father abandoned the family when Marshall, and that's a wound that, you can hear it in the music 30 years later. So he never met him, not even later on when he got famous and the dad maybe came sniffing around.
Never. The sources are just heartbreaking on this point. Marshall talked in interviews about how, as a little kid, he used to write letters to his dad. He'd draw pictures, put them in envelopes, mail them to the last known address.
Oh, man.
And they would always come back. Stamped, return to sender.
That is just crushing for a kid.
It creates this profound void. And later, when he was a global superstar, he said something really telling. He said, if my kids moved to the edge of the earth, I'd find them with no money. He just couldn't comprehend that level of abandonment.
So that leaves him being raised by his mother, Deb. And from all the accounts in our sources, that was, let's call it a chaotic upbringing.
Chaotic is putting it so mildly. Debbie struggled, and it's well documented, with mental health issues, with substance abuse. But what that meant for Marshall, practically, is that they were nomads.
Constantly moving.
Constant. Shuttling between Missouri and Michigan, living in trailers, living with relatives. One source notes that before he even hit high school, Marshall had attended roughly 30 different schools.
Wait, hold on a sec. 30. 30.
30 schools.
That is insane. If you do the math on that, what is that? That's a new school every few months for his entire childhood.
That's exactly it. He said in an interview, the longest he ever stayed in one place was about 3 months. Just think about the social toll of that.
Oh, it's impossible. You can't make friends. You're always the new kid.
You're always the new kid. You don't know the social hierarchy. You don't know who the dangerous kids are. And for him, he was almost always the scrawny, new white kid in a really rough, predominantly black neighborhood. He stood out.
Which made him a target. We have to talk about the bullying, because this wasn't just, give me your lunch money stuff. The sources make it sound like it was life-threatening.
It was absolutely brutal. There's one specific incident that comes up in every single biography. He was 9 years old. There was a bully named D'Angelo Bailey.
The name he later puts in the song brings
the very same. Bailey caught Marshall in the school bath and beat him so severely that Marshall suffered a cerebral hemorrhage.
A cerebral hemorrhage at 9 from a school?
He was in a coma for days. His mother actually tried to sue the school district for failing to protect him.
I don't blame her.
No. But the case was eventually But forget the legal stuff. Think about the psychological impact. You're 9, you're small, feel alone, and now you know you are physically unsafe.
That feeling of being unprotected by the instincts that has to breed a very specific...
It breeds rage, and it breeds a deep desire for a shield. He needed armor.
And so where does the music come in? Was that the armor he was looking for?
Eventually, yes. But it started, like it so often does, with a personal connect. The one stable male figure in his young life was his Uncle Ron.
His mother's brother.
Right. But they were really close in age, so he was much more like a cool older brother, a father figure. And Ronnie was the one who introduced Marshall to the culture of hip-hop.
What was the spark? What was the first thing he heard?
It was the soundtrack to the movie Breaking, specifically a track by Ice-T called Reckless. Ronnie gave him the tape, and Marshall said it was like a lightning bolt just hit him. He became obsessed. He fell in love with the rhythm, the storytelling, the wordplay. He started studying rhymes.
So it gave him a world he could control.
A world where words were the weapons, not fists. But because this is the Marshall Mathers story, you know, tragedy is always right around the corner.
Yeah.
In 1991, his Uncle Ronnie committed suicide.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
The one stable.
The one guy. It devastated Marshall. He was 19 at the time. The sources say he stopped speaking for days. He didn't even go to the funeral because he just couldn't handle the reality of it. And you hear Ronnie's name pop up for the rest of his career in Stan.
Yeah.
In Cleaning Out My Closet. Losing Ronnie meant losing his ankle.
So this fast forwards us to the mid-90s. He's dropped out of high school.
Failed 9th grade 3 times. Not because he was dumb, but because he was constantly skipping class to go to rap battles.
Right. So he's out of school, living in Detroit permanently now, and he's on the grind.
The relentless Detroit grind. I mean, he's working at a place called Gilbert's Lodge, flipping burgers, washing dishes, making minimum wage, and the sources all paint this really vivid picture of him just obsessively, constantly writing.
On anything he could find.
On receipts, on napkins, on the palm of his hand while he's working the grill. He was just a machine trying to break into the local battle rap scene. But he's facing this massive, massive obstacle.
The white rapper stigma.
Exactly.
We have to contextualize this for you because today, nobody blinks an eye at a white rapper. But in 1995, who is the face of white rap?
It's Vanilla Ice.
The hair, the dance moves.
Right. And look, Vanilla Ice sold a ton of records, but culturally, he became a punchline. He was seen as a corporate product, a total fake. He made the very idea of a white rapper look like a novelty act, a joke.
The Beastie Boys had credibility, though.
They did. But by the mid-90s, they had really pivoted into their own kind of punk rap niche. They weren't in the same lane. So for a white kid like Marshall, trying to be taken seriously as a pure lyricist in the underground Detroit battle scene, it was a brutal uphill battle.
He was basically guilty until proven innocent every time he walked on stage.
Oh, absolutely. He had to be twice as good to get half the respect. The stories are legendary. He'd walk into these clubs and the whole place would just boo him before he even grabbed the mic.
Just on site?
Just on site. They call him Elvis. They call him all sorts of names. But the second he started rapping, the entire room would go quiet because the skill was just undeniable.
So he's building this local reputation. And in 1996, he finally manages to release his debut album, Infinite. And we need to talk about Infinite because I think a lot of casual fans, they don't even know it exists.
And it is a crucial failure. That's how I look at it. He scraped together every penny he had to record this thing. He's pressing up copies himself.
And it completely flopped.
Totally. How bad? He sold maybe 1,000 copies.
Wow.
He was literally selling them out of the trunk of his rusted out. But the commercial failure wasn't even the worst part. It was the criticism he got. People told him he sounded too soft. And worse, they said he sounded too much like other popular rappers at the time, specifically Nas and AZ from New York.
So he hadn't found his own voice yet.
Not at all. He was mimicking his heroes. He wanted to be a good rapper, a respectful lyrical rapper. If you listen to Infinite, it's very polite, it's very complex lyrically, but it's safe. It wasn't him. And that rejection just broke him.
This leads directly to what all the sources describe as his absolute rock bottom.
This is the breaking point. It's 1997. He's living in a crime-ridden neighborhood in a bad part of Detroit. His house is getting robbed repeatedly.
He has a baby daughter.
Haley, yeah. And he can't afford diapers for her. He can't afford formula. It's during this period that he attempts suicide. He just felt like he had hit a wall. He was too good to quit rapping, but he just wasn't making it. He was stuck.
And it's out of that complete darkness that something just snapped.
And that snap is the birth of Slim Shady.
This part of the story is fascinating to me because Slim Shady wasn't just like a fun character he thought up one day. It was a genuine survival mechanism.
100%. The story he tells is that he was literally sitting on the toilet one day and the name Slim Shady just popped into his head. And with that name came the entire attitude. He had this epiphany.
What was it?
He realized that trying to be the nice guy rapper, the lyrical, spiritual guy, it wasn't working. He had all this rage bottled up, all this dark, twisted humor, all this trauma from his childhood. So he decided to create a vessel for it. Slim Shady was the character that allowed him to say all the things that Marshall Mathers was too polite or too scared to say.
It was a way to finally vent the rage at a world that had just completely rejected him.
Precisely. He stopped trying to sound like Nas. He started rapping in that higher-pitched, more nasal, more aggressive voice that we all know now. And he started rapping about drugs, about poverty, about violence, but with this sick, twisted, almost cartoonish sense of humor.
So he records the Slim Shady EP. It's raw, it's offensive, and this is what leads to the moment that changes everything.
To Rap Olympics.
Los Angeles, 1997.
This is the stuff of movies. I mean, it really is. Marshall travels to L.A. completely desperate. The night before he leaves Detroit, he comes home to find his house has been locked, he's been evicted.
So he can't even get in his own house.
He has to break in through a back window just to sleep on the floor in the middle of a Detroit winter with no heat.
So he arrives in L.A. with literally nothing.
Nothing. He goes to the Rap Olympics, hoping to win the $500 grand prize. Not to get a record deal, but just to pay his bills and get his lights turned back.
And he's incredible.
He battles his way through the whole bracket. He destroys everyone he goes up against. He gets to the final.
And he loses.
He loses. He comes in second place to a guy named Otherwise.
That must have been just the most devastating blow.
He was crushed. You can see video of it. He's crying. He thought that was it. His one last shot was gone forever. But in this massive twist of fate, somebody who was in the audience was an intern from Interscope Records.
Just a low-level intern.
And Marshall, defeated, just passes him his demo tape, the Slim Shady EP.
Like a here, do whatever you want with this kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And that tape, through a series of lucky breaks, finds its way to the desk of the head of Interscope, Jimmy Iovine.
Who then plays it for Dr. Dre. Now, we have to pause because Dr. Dre is a legend, creator of NWA, The Chronic. But in 1997, where was Dre's career?
It was in a major slump. A really bad one. He had left Death Row Records, leaving behind the empire he built with Tupac and Snoop. He was trying to launch his own label, Aftermath.
And it wasn't going well.
Not at all. His first compilation album, Dr. Dre Present, The Aftermath, had flopped hard. The industry buzz was that Dre had fallen off, that he was done. He needed a hit just as badly as Eminem did.
So Dre, in the middle of this career crisis, here's this tape of a nasally white kid screaming about violence and drugs.
And he says, find him now. He didn't care that he was white. He famously said, I don't care if you're purple. If you can kick it, I'm working with you.
So they finally meet, and the sources say the chemistry was just instantaneous.
It was pure magic. Marshall walks into the studio, and he's wearing his bright yellow sweats. Dre said he looked like a banana.
Not exactly intimidating.
Not at all.
Yeah.
But Dre put on a beat, a little sample from a guy called Lobi Sifra, and Marshall just instinctively leaned into the mic and started going, hi, my name is Fa. My name is who?
That iconic hook just came out of him right there on the spot.
Just like that. It was, I think, the second song they ever recorded together. The beat just started talking, and that became the introduction of Slim Shady to the entire world.
Now, there's a bit of a myth we need to bust here, which the deep dive sources really highlight. I think a lot of people, myself included for a long time, assumed that Dr. Dre produced that entire first album, the Slim Shady LP.
Right, that is the common perception, that Eminem is Dr. Dre's creation. But if you actually go and look at the liner notes for the album, Dre only produced 3 songs.
Only which ones?
My Name Is, you're the lead single, Guilty Conscience, and Role Model.
So who did the rest of the album?
2 brothers from Detroit, Mark and Jeff Bass, the Bass brothers. They had been working with Eminem for years in their little attic studio. They are the ones who provided that raw, underground, unpolished, almost grimy sound that makes up the bulk of that album.
So it still feels like Detroit.
It feels like Detroit. Dre came in and added the major label polish and the hit singles, but the actual soul of that album is pure Detroit production.
And the content of that album, it was so shocking at the time. This was not the shiny suit era of P. Diddy and Bad Boy records.
No, this was the anti-bling. At the time, mainstream hip-hop was very aspirational. It was about crystal, it was about wealth, champagne, success. You had Jay-Z, you had Puffy, and then Eminem comes in rapping about being broke.
The song Rock Bottom.
Rock Bottom is a masterpiece of desperation. He wrote that song right after he got fired from his cooking job at Gilbert's Lodge. It was days before his daughter's birthday, and he had $40 to his name. You can feel that authentic panic in the lyric. That's rock bottom, when this life makes you mad enough to kill.
And speaking of killing, we have to talk about 97 Bonnie and...
This is where the lines between reality and this new kind of horrorcore music start to blur in a way that just terrified.
So the song is a narrative about him murdering his wife, Kim, putting her body in the trunk of his car.
And then taking his infant daughter with him to help dump the body in a lake.
But the truly disturbing part isn't just the lyrics, it's the guest vocals on the...
Right. He used his actual daughter, Haley, who was just a toddler, on the song.
Okay, you have to explain how that even happened.
It is almost unbelievable. He told Kim, the very woman he is rapping about brutally murdering, that he was taking Haley to Chuck E. Cheese for the day.
A normal dad thing to do.
A completely normal dad thing to do. Instead, he took her to the recording studio, he put her in the vocal booth, and he just played with her. He tickled her to get her to laugh, got her to say, help dada, and things like that. And he recorded all her cooing and baby talk and layered it over this track about killing her mother.
That's beyond dark. It's almost sociopathic in its construction.
It is deeply, deeply disturbing. Dr. Dre even said later that if he were Kim and he heard that song for the first time, he would have run for the hills. But that was the duality of it. It was horrifying, but it was also incredibly catchy and in this really twisted way, kind of funny. It was cartoon violence brought to life.
And it worked. The album dropped in 1999, and it didn't just sell, it completely shifted the culture.
It changed the entire tone of mainstream hip-hop. Suddenly, this kind of trailer park depression and rage and absurdity were valid topics for a rap song. It tapped into a massive audience of kids, white kids, black kids, poor kids, angry kids who felt misunderstood, who didn't relate at all to the millionaire lifestyle of other rappers.
Which brings us to the explosion, the peak, the Marshall Mathers LP, the year 2000.
If the Slim Shady LP was the introduction, the Marshall Mathers LP was the nuclear bomb.
The numbers are staggering.
It sold 1.76 million copies in its first. That is still the fastest-selling solo album in music history. It was a legitimate cultural phenomenon on the level of the Beatles or Elvis.
But the bigger the sales, the bigger the backlash. This is when the Confessor era really begins, right?
Yes. He makes a shift. He goes from just trying to shock people for fun to actively attacking the media and his own fame. He realizes he's become public enemy number one, so he leans into it. He embraces the role.
The protests were real. We aren't exaggerating this for effect.
Oh, they were very real. Gay rights groups like GLA, parent associations, politicians on both sides of the aisle, they were picketing his shows. Lynn Cheney, the vice president's wife at the time, was condemning him by name.
They were reading his lyrics in Congress.
Literally reading his lyrics on C-SPAN to prove that he was destroying the youth of America. They tried to ban him from entering Canada and the UK.
And how did he react to all this? Did he apologize? Did he back down?
He did the absolute opposite. He poured gasoline on the fire. He wrote the real Slim Shady specifically to annoy his critic. He mocked the protests. He mocked pop stars. But beneath all that trolling, there was an incredible level of artistry happening. Stan is on this album.
Stan is iconic. It literally added a new word to the dictionary.
It did. And it showed he wasn't just a clown. He was a master storyteller. He was analyzing the toxic relationship between a celebrity and an obsessive fan. It was almost a warning to his own fan base, saying, don't be like this. This is just music.
Then he follows it up with the Eminem Show in 2002, and this is where I feel like he evolves again into something more.
This is the Crusader era, or maybe you could call it the auteur era, because what a lot of people don't realize, and this is a key takeaway for you listening, is that Eminem produced 90% of the Eminem Show himself.
Really? I didn't know that. I always assumed that was another Dre project.
Nope. Dre was busy working on 50 Cent and other projects, so Eminem stepped up and started making the beats. And you can hear the difference in the sound immediately. It's got this huge stadium rock feel to it.
Big drums.
Big stomp clap beats, Queen samples, Aerosmith samples. He wanted to prove that he was a complete artist, not just some guy who rapped really well over Dr. Dre.
And the themes are getting more mature, too. He's addressing his own privilege.
White America.
Yeah.
It's one of his smartest, most self-aware songs. He comes right out and raps, if I was black, I would have sold half.
He admits it.
He admits it. He acknowledges that millions of suburban white kids were buying his records because he looked like them, and that was precisely what made him a lightning rod for controversy. He knew that if he were a black artist rapping about the exact same things, he might have just been ignored or marginalized. But because he was white, he was invading the suburb. It was a moment of incredible self-awareness.
And then on that same album, you get Cleaning Out My Closet.
Which is just brutal honesty. His mother was actively suing him for defamation at the time, seeking $10 million because of a line in My Name Is. Instead of settling quiet, he wrote a global top 10 hit, airing out all their dirty laundry.
He goes after her hard.
He accuses her of Munchausen by proxy, of pill popping. He says, I would never diss my own mama just to get recognition. Take a second to listen before you think this record is dissing. He was airing the most painful family trauma on a global stage.
And right in the middle of this absolute musical peak, he decides to do a move, 8 Mile.
And writes, Lose Yourself for it.
Which wins him the first ever Academy Award for a hip-hop.
That was the moment he transcended the genre completely. He wasn't just a rapper anymore. He was a global superstar. Your grandmother knew who Eminem was. Lose Yourself is an anthem that works in a gym, in a stadium, in a corporate motivational meeting. It's universal. It's about seizing your one moment.
So you are literally on top of the world. You have the Oscar, the record-breaking sales, the critical acclaim, the fame. But as we see so often in these deep dives, the higher you go,
the harder and faster the fall. And the fall for Eminem was steep and it was dangerous.
It all started with, didn't it? Something that's...
It did. The pressure of the fame, the constant touring, the 16-hour days on the movie set. He just could not turn his brain off at night. So someone on the movie set gave him an Ambien.
Just to sleep.
But then, you're groggy in the morning, so you need something to wake you up. And then you need something for the pain because jumping around on stage for 2 hours a night hurts your back and your knees. So you get some Vicodin, then some Valium.
And it just spiraled from there.
Very quickly. He said in his book he was taking anything I could get my hand. He described digging through his medicine cabinet, just taking pills he didn't even know the names of. And you can hear it creaking into the music. Encore, which came out in 2004, is widely considered the beginning of the decline.
Even he admits that album isn't his best work, right?
Oh, he hates it. He calls it a dud. And it is. The album's completely unfocused. You have songs like Just Lose It or Big Weenie. They just feel lazy, drug-fueled, and childish.
Yeah.
There are tracks where he is literally making fart noises and burping into the microphone. He was running out of steam and just numbing himself to get through the day.
And then when he's at this low point, tragedy strikes again, 2006.
The death of his best friend, Proof.
Proof was more than just his hype man.
He was everything. He was the anchor. He was the hype man for D12, sure, but he was also the one person who could keep Marshall grounded. Proof knew Marshall before he was Eminem. He was the link back to his humanity, back to who he was before the fame. And in April 2006, Proof was shot and killed in a nightclub in Detroit over a game of pool.
And that just broke him.
It broke him completely. After Proof died, Eminem essentially retired. He canceled all his tours. He went into a deep, dark depression. He holed up in his mansion, just eating junk food and taking pills. He gained a massive amount of weight. The sources say he was up to 230 pounds. He couldn't get out of bed. And the drug use escalated from just problematic to truly lethal.
We have to talk about the overdose, because he didn't just have a scare, he was minutes away from dying.
It was Christmas 2007. He bought some pills from an acquaintance. He thought they were Vicodin, which he was used to taking, but they were actually meth.
And methadone is incredibly strong. It's what they use to treat heroin addiction.
Extremely strong. He took a handful. He collapsed on his bathroom floor. He was rushed to the hospital. And the doctors told him later that the amount of methadone he had taken was the equivalent of 4 bags of heroin.
4 bags of heroin for someone with no tolerance for it.
His organs were shutting down. The doctors told him he was about 2 hours from dying. If he got into the hospital any later, he would have been gone.
And did that scare him straight? Was that the moment?
Not immediately. And that's the insidious nature of addiction. He checked himself out of the hospital early, against doctor's orders. He went home, and he relapsed about a month later. He was, by his own admission, popping up to 20 pills a day. Valium, Vicodin, Klonopin. He saw himself as a functioning addict, but he wasn't functioning at all. He had to relearn how to live.
But eventually he does get sober. April 20, 2008 is his sobriety date. He commits to it. He starts exercising, obsessively running 17 miles a day on a treadmill to replace one addiction with another, healthier one. And he takes a 5-year hiatus from releasing albums. When he comes back in 2009, he drops Relapse.
And this is where it gets really, really interesting for our listeners, because Relapse is, in my opinion, the hidden gem of his entire discography.
But at the time, people hated it, didn't they? The reaction was so divided.
The reaction was very mixed. A lot of people were just confused. He wasn't rapping about his life anymore. He was doing these bizarre accents on every song.
The accents, I remember that. It was like this Middle Eastern, Irish, Christopher Walken kind of all over.
Right. And Eminem himself has said he cringes when he listens to it now. He said he didn't even realize he was doing that many accents until he listened back to the finished album. But, and this is a really big but, if you can look past the initial weirdness of it, Relapse is technically spectacular.
How so? I mean, why the accents? Was there a real reason for it?
There was. The sources explained that the accents were a tool. They allowed him to bend words. He could make words rhyme that shouldn't rhyme by twisting the pronunciation. For example, in the song 3 a.m., he bends all these vowels to make an entire verse rhyme with one sound. It was a way for him to loosen up. He had had writer's block for years in his addiction. The accents were the key that unlocked his flow again.
So it was like a technical drill that became an album?
That's a perfect way to put it. And if you listen to tracks like Stay Wide Awake, lyricists and rap nerds study that song. The rhyme schemes, the cadence, the internal rhymes. He's rhyming 4- and 5-syllable words inside the bars. It's incredibly complex.
And the production is different too?
This is Dr. Dre's magnum opus with Eminem, I think. Dre was heavily involved again, providing these dark, cinematic, menacing beats. The whole thing is a horrorcore concept album.
What do you mean by horrorcore?
It means he adopts the persona of a serial killer for most of the album. He said that while he was getting sober, he was just watching documentaries about Ted Bundy and John Wayne Gacy. He channeled all that darkness he felt inside himself into this character. It was a way to express the ugliness without rapping about his own life directly.
But there are a few moments of reality on there too, right? It's not all fantasy.
Yes, and they're crucial. Beautiful is the only track he produced himself on that album, and it's incredibly vulnerable. It was one of the only songs he wrote when he was still in the depths of his addiction. And then there's Deja Vu.
Which is about the overdose itself.
It is a harrowing, step-by-step, factual account of his addiction. I hide in my bedroom, I don't want to see anyone. It grounds the entire album in reality. So while Relapse is this weird, dark fantasy, it's also the sound of a genius rediscovering his superpowers after nearly dying.
It's the unfinished painting, as one of our sources called it.
Exactly. Imperfect, but it's valuable precisely because it shows you the raw process of his recovery.
So he gets the weird stuff out of his system with Relapse, and then in 2010, he pivots. Hard recovery.
The title says it all. He completely ditches the accents. He ditches the serial killer vibe, and he goes for these huge stadium anthems.
Not afraid.
Not afraid. Love the Way You Lie with Rihanna. This is a very conscious decision to make music that was emotional, inspirational, and commercially accessible. He wanted to prove he could still make massive hits.
And it absolutely worked commercially.
It was the best-selling album in the world. It proved that he could mature as an artist. He wasn't just the angry kid anymore. He was a survivor. He was telling his audience, I messed up. I almost died, but I'm back and I'm stronger for it.
And a song like Love the Way You Lie, that's him dealing with toxic relationships again, but from a completely different angle.
It's much more reflective. He's acknowledging the cycle of abuse from both sides. It resonated with millions of people who had been in those situations. It wasn't just shock value anymore. It was exploring the painful psychology of domestic violence.
From there, he seems to sort of settle into this new role, the elder statesman of rap. The Marshall Mathers LP2 comes out in 2013.
Which was this interesting nostalgic return, but with a modern twist. And on it, you have Rap God.
I feel like Rap God was him just planting a flag, just reminding everyone, hey, I can still do this better than any.
It's a 6-minute-long lyrical flag that holds a Guinness World Record for the most words in a hit single. It was him showing the new generation, the so-called mumble rappers, what pure technical proficiency.
But on that very same album, you have the song Headlight. And I think this is one of the single most important songs in his entire catalog.
I completely agree. After decades of cleaning out my closet and rapping about how much he hated his mom, how he hoped she'd burn in hell,
He apologizes.
He apologizes to her publicly on a song featuring Neat Roos from Fun. He realizes that she was sick, that their situation was complicated, and that he contributed to the toxicity. He raps about the time she was taken away in an ambulance and he didn't even go to the hospital. He says, I don't hate you, mama. You're still beautiful to me.
That's a massive emotional arc. To go from I hope you burn in hell to I forgive you.
It signals the true end of the angry young man era. He grew up. He realized that holding on to all that hate was only hurting him in the long.
And that kind of brings us up to the present day, the recent Houdini era, the new music.
Which is a really interesting blend of everything. He's acknowledging the fan debate of corny versus classic. He's sampling the Steve Miller Band. He's bringing back the old Slim Shady visuals in the music videos, literally fighting his younger self. But he's doing it as a man in his 50s.
It feels like a victory lap.
It is. He knows he doesn't have to prove anything to anyone anymore. He's just having fun with the craft that saved him.
So when we look back at this entire crazy arc, what are the key themes? If we have to distill this whole career down into a few main takeaways.
I think the biggest one is the constant push and pull between authenticity and shock.
Explain what you mean by that.
That's the balancing act of his entire career. He was the clown, bashing celebrities. He was the monster, dreaming up these violent fantasies. But he was also the human, the loving father, the struggling addict. And the audience stuck with him because even when he was rapping about aliens or serial killers, the emotion behind it felt real.
You believed him.
You believed him. You knew he was really angry. You knew he was really sad. He bled on the track, and people connected with that raw honesty.
And of course, we can't ignore the role of race.
No, and to his credit, he never ignored it either. That's the smart part. He openly acknowledged that being white helped his sales in the suburbs. He became the great white hope for a generation of kids, while simultaneously being the #1 villain for their parents.
But it was a double-edged sword.
A huge one, because that racial dynamic also put a massive target on his back. He had to prove his skill was absolutely undeniable to be accepted in the world of hip-hop. He couldn't just be good for a white boy. He had to be the best, period.
Which he arguably became, and that's the third.
Yeah.
The technical math.
The obsession, the stories of him writing on his hand, of him studying the dictionary. He literally used to read the dictionary to find new multi-syllable words to rhyme. The evolution from that nasally high-pitched flow in '99 to the choppy, intricate, almost percussive flows he uses today. He treats rapping like it's a sport. He wants to win the gold medal every single time he steps up.
So what does this all mean for us? Why does the story matter beyond just a bunch of catchy and controversial songs?
I think at his core, Eminem is a survivor. That's the real story here.
Yeah.
He survived poverty. He survived what was essentially the foster system. He survived severe bullying, the loss of his father figure, the murder of his best friend, and a lethal drug overdose that should have killed. And he did it all while the entire world was watching and judging his every move.
And he documented every second of it.
Every ugly, beautiful, messy part of his life is in the verse. If you listen to his albums in chronological order, You are hearing an autobiography unfold in real time. Even the so-called failed albums like Encore or Relapse are crucial chapters in that book. They show you the mental state of the man at that exact time. Encore sounds drugged out and lazy because he was drugged out and lazy. Recovery sounds triumphant because he survived.
It's a truly remarkable journey. From a trailer park in Detroit to the Oscar stage.
And he's still rapping, still obsessed with the craft.
So here's the question that we really want to leave you with today. We talked about all the protests, the controversy, the pure shock value of the early 2000s. In our modern climate, where cancellation can happen instantly and cultural sensitivity is at an all-time high, could a Slim Shady even exist today?
That's the big question, isn't it? Was he a product of a very specific moment in time? A pre-social media pressure cooker? Maybe the last gasp of the monoculture that can never be repeated? Or does every generation need a boogeyman to scare the parents and speak for the angry kids?
Something to think about while you're stuck in traffic or doing the dish. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive and chaotic genius of Marshall Mathers.
See you next time.